Jack Miller stood on the porch of his small cabin, watching the sun set over the rolling hills of New Montana Colony. The evening air was cool against his skin as he sipped his coffee. His days were quiet now, just the way he liked them. After 15 years as a space marine in the Terran Defense Force, peace and quiet were all he wanted. The sky turned a deep orange as the last light faded. Jack had chosen this spot carefully when he retired 3 years ago. No neighbors for miles. No reminders of the war. No one to ask him about the nightmares that still woke him up at night. Covered in sweat and reaching for a weapon that wasn't there, a soft beep from inside the cabin broke the silence. Jack frowned. His quantum communicator rarely made noise. These days, most people had gotten the message that he wanted to be left alone. He walked inside, put down his coffee mug, and checked the screen. "Well, I'll be damned," Jack muttered as he read the message. It was from Greg Dawson, one of the few friends he'd made during the Proxima Centauri conflict. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. The message was simple. "Jack, you old hermit. I'm in your sector on diplomatic business. Coming to visit tomorrow. Got a surprise that will change everything. Don't run off to the woods when I arrive." Jack shook his head. Greg had always been dramatic. After the war, while Jack had retreated from society, Greg had gone the opposite way. He'd become a diplomat working with the very aliens they had once fought against, the Zephyrians. Jack still had mixed feelings about that. The next morning, Jack cleaned his cabin for the first time in months. Not because he cared what Greg thought, he told himself, but because it needed doing anyway. By midday, he heard the distinctive hum of a diplomatic shuttle landing in the clearing near his home. Jack stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the sun. The shuttle door opened and Greg appeared, still looking like the soldier he once was despite the fancy diplomatic uniform. His broad smile and the way he bounded down the ramp were exactly as Jack remembered. "Jack Miller. Still hiding from civilization, I see," Greg called out. Arms wide for a hug, Jack allowed the brief embrace, patting his friend's back awkwardly. "Someone has to keep an eye on these woods," he replied with a small smile. Greg stepped back, his expression turning serious. "I have something important to show you, or rather someone." He turned toward the shuttle and beckoned. A figure appeared in the doorway, hesitating before stepping into the light. Jack's breath caught in his throat. It was a Zephyrian female, but unlike any he had seen during the war. She was tall and graceful, with skin the color of the sky at dusk, a shimmering blue that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were large and silver, reflecting light like tiny moons. Where humans had hair, she had delicate, glowing tendrils that moved slightly as if caught in a gentle breeze. She wore a simple white dress that flowed around her slender form. "Jack, this is Lyra," Greg said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Lyra, this is my good friend Jack Miller." Lyra stepped forward and bowed her head slightly. "I am honored to meet you, Jack Miller," she said, her voice musical and clear. With only a slight accent, Jack nodded stiffly, unsure what to say. He had not been this close to a Zephyrian since the final battles of the war. Those memories were not pleasant ones. "Let's go inside," Greg suggested, filling the awkward silence. "I have a lot to explain." Seated around Jack's small kitchen table, Greg launched into his story. 3 months ago, I was part of a diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian Council. Things got complicated. There was an assassination attempt on one of their high elders. Jack raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I spotted the assassin and tackled him before he could fire. Saved the elder's life. Greg shrugged as if it were nothing. The Zephyrians take life debts very seriously. The elder insisted on rewarding me with their highest honor, a marriage bond with a member of a noble Zephyrian family. Jack nearly choked on his water. "You're married to a Zephyrian now?" Greg laughed. No, I couldn't accept. Diplomatic rules forbid it. Could cause all kinds of political problems." He glanced at Lyra, who sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "But refusing outright would have been a terrible insult, so I thought of you." The cabin fell silent. Jack stared at his friend, then at the alien woman, then back at Greg. You what? I told them about you. How you were a hero in the war, how you lived alone. How you might appreciate a companion? Greg leaned forward. Jack, they were going to gift me Lyra as a wife. I redirected the gift to you. Jack stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. You did what? You can't just give someone a wife like they're a bottle of whiskey. Lyra spoke for the first time since entering the cabin. Among my people, arranged unions are common and honored. I was prepared for this possibility since childhood. Jack ran a hand through his hair. This isn't right. Humans don't do this anymore. We don't. Greg's communicator buzzed loudly, interrupting Jack's protest. Greg checked it and grimaced. Damn, emergency at the embassy. He stood and placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. I know this is a lot, but just give it a chance. Lyra is educated in human customs. She's here voluntarily. Lyra nodded. This is true. I chose to accept when I learned of your bravery in battle. Greg was already moving toward the door. I'll be back in a few weeks to check on you both. Just be kind to each other until then. This could be good for you, Jack, for both of you. Before Jack could form another protest, Greg was gone. The sound of the shuttle's engines faded quickly, leaving Jack alone with the alien woman who apparently now considered herself his wife. Jack sank back into his chair. At a complete loss for words, Lyra watched him with those silver eyes that seemed to see too much. You are uncomfortable, she stated simply. This is understandable. I too feel ... uncertain. Jack looked up, surprised by her admission. You do? She nodded, the luminous tendrils around her head moving like seaweed in gentle currents. I have studied humans, but I have never lived among them. And I know our peoples have a difficult history, Jack snorted. That's putting it mildly. Yet here we are, Lyra said, her gaze steady. Perhaps we can learn from each other. Jack stared at her, this strange alien creature who had been gifted to him without his consent or knowledge. He should be angry, he should demand she leave. But something in her calm dignity made him hesitate. I suppose you need a place to sleep, he said finally. A small smile curved Lyra's lips. It was such a human expression on her alien face that Jack felt a jolt of surprise. Yes, she replied. I would appreciate that. As the evening stars appeared outside the cabin window, Jack Miller realized his quiet, isolated life had just become infinitely more complicated. The first week with Lyra in his home was the strangest of Jack's life. He gave her the small guest room and kept his distance as much as possible in the tiny cabin. Each morning, he woke to find her already up, sitting cross-legged on the porch. Her eyes closed as the sunrise bathed her blue skin in golden light. What are you doing? He finally asked on the fifth day. Lyra opened her silver eyes slowly. Morning communion. Zephyrians connect with the energy of the nearest star at dawn. It helps balance our internal systems. Jack nodded as if this made perfect sense and retreated to make coffee. These small discoveries about her alien nature kept catching him off guard. Later that day, Jack found Lyra rearranging the furniture in the living room. She had pushed his old couch against the wall and was creating a circular space in the center of the room, lined with cushions and blankets. What's this supposed to be? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. A proper resting nest? Lyra explained, smoothing a blanket. Your sleeping arrangements are very ... linear. Zephyrians prefer circular spaces. It helps with dream sharing, Jack frowned. Dream sharing? Lyra's tendrils pulsed with a soft light, which Jack had learned meant she was experiencing a strong emotion. Bonded pairs among my people share dreams. It strengthens the connection. She paused, looking uncertain. I know we are not truly bonded yet, but I thought perhaps in time. We're not getting bonded, Jack said firmly. This whole situation is just a misunderstanding. Once Greg comes back, we'll sort it out. Lyra's tendrils dimmed. Returning to my people without completing a bond would bring great shame to my family. It might also damage the peace between our species. Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Look, on Earth people choose who they marry. They don't get gifted to each other. I did choose, Lyra said quietly. When your friend spoke of you, I volunteered. Many would have considered it an honor to be matched with a war hero. Jack turned away. I'm no hero. That night, they ate dinner in uncomfortable silence. Jack had prepared a simple meal of synthesized protein and vegetables from his garden. He watched as Lyra carefully studied how he used the fork before attempting it herself. Don't you have forks on your planet? He asked. We use something similar, but with 2 prongs, not 4. And we typically eat communally, sharing from the same dishes. She looked down at her separate plate. Everything here is so individual. Jack considered this. Is that why you're always trying to be in the same room as me? On your world, people are just always together, Lyra nodded. Zephyrians are empathic. Being physically close to others is natural for us. Isolation is ... double quotes. She searched for the word. Painful. Jack felt a twinge of guilt. He had been deliberately avoiding her, retreating to his workshop or taking long walks alone. I didn't know. You could not have known, she said simply, the next morning. Instead of avoiding her sunrise ritual, Jack brought 2 cups of coffee to the porch and sat beside her. Her tendrils glowed brighter for a moment when he appeared, though she kept her eyes closed. They sat in silence as the sun rose, and Jack had to admit there was something peaceful about the practice. As the days passed, more colonists from the nearby settlement became aware of Jack's unusual houseguest. Their isolated cabin was suddenly receiving visitors. Is it true you're married to an alien? Asked Ben Harper, the colony's supply officer, who had never bothered to visit Jack before. No, Jack said firmly. At the same moment, Lyra said yes, by Zephyrian custom. Ben's eyes widened as he looked between them. The governor will want to know about this. There are protocols for alien residents. After Ben left, Jack paced the living room. This is going to cause trouble. The colony has strict rules about unregistered aliens. I can register, Lyra offered. I have diplomatic clearance through. The gift exchange. Jack stopped pacing. This isn't a diplomatic visit, though, is it? This is supposed to be permanent. Lyra's gaze met his. Does that thought disturb you so deeply? Before Jack could answer, the quantum communicator chimed. It was an official message from the colonial government requesting their presence the next day. The Colonial Administration Building was the largest structure in New Montana, made of real stone instead of the prefabricated materials used for most buildings. Jack and Lyra stood before a panel of 3 officials, including Governor Paula Wright, a stern woman with gray hair and a permanent frown. Mr. Miller, we have no record of application for alien residency, the governor said. Yet, we have reports that a Zephyrian female has been living in your home for over a week. Jack cleared his throat. It's a complicated situation, Governor. My friend Greg Dawson, he's a diplomat to the Zephyrian Council, arranged for Lyra to stay with me temporarily. That is not accurate, Lyra interrupted. By the customs of my people, Jack and I are bonded. I am here as his life partner. The room fell silent. The governor leaned forward. Are you claiming you 2 are married? No, Jack said quickly. By my cultural standards, yes, Lyra said at the same time. The governor sighed. This is highly irregular. Relations with the Zephyrians are still delicate after the war. We can't afford any diplomatic incidents. There won't be any incidents, Jack promised. As soon as Greg returns, we'll clear this up. Until then, the governor decided Ms. Lyra may stay, but with provisional status only. She must check in weekly and cannot leave the colony boundaries. And Mr. Miller, you are responsible for her actions while she's here. As they walked home, Lyra was quieter than usual. Jack felt bad about how the meeting had gone. I'm sorry about that, he finally said. I didn't mean to make it sound like I want you gone. Lyra looked at him with those silver eyes that seemed to see right through him. Don't you? Jack considered the question honestly. A week ago, the answer would have been simple. Now he wasn't so sure. I've been alone a long time. It's what I'm used to. Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing, Lyra said softly. One is a choice. The other is an ache. That evening, as Jack made dinner, he found himself calling Lyra to ask how spicy she preferred her food. When she joined him in the kitchen to help, Their hands brushed as she took a plate from him. Jack felt a strange, tingling sensation, like a mild electric current passing between them. Lyra's tendrils flared bright blue. "You felt that?" Jack nodded, surprised. "What was it?" "The beginning of an empathic connection," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. It should not be possible with a human. Jack didn't know what to say. All he knew was that for the first time in years, his cabin didn't feel quite so empty. Word spread quickly through New Montana colony about the human living with the Zephyrian. 2 weeks after their meeting with the governor, Jack noticed people staring when he and Lyra went to the market for supplies. Some looked curious, others hostile. "Maybe I should wait at home next time," Lyra suggested as they walked past a group of colonists who fell silent at their approach. "No," Jack said firmly. "You have every right to be here." As they selected fresh vegetables, a man in a worn jacket approached them. Jack recognized him as Frank Davis, a fellow veteran who had fought in a different sector during the war. "So it's true," Frank said, looking Lyra up and down. "You've got yourself an alien wife." "She's not my wife," Jack replied automatically, though the denial felt less certain than before. Frank stepped closer. "My brother died on Proxima 4, killed by her kind." Jack moved slightly in front of Lyra. "The war's over, Frank." "Is it?" Frank's eyes narrowed. "Or are they just finding new ways to invade?" Other shoppers were watching now. Jack could feel tension building in the air. "We should go," Lyra said softly, her tendrils dimming to an almost gray color. Jack had learned this indicated distress. "Listen to your alien, Miller," Frank sneered. "Take her home before someone decides New Montana doesn't welcome her type." Jack felt his old combat instincts stirring. His hands clenched into fists. But before he could respond, Lyra stepped forward. She looked directly at Frank, her silver eyes unblinking. "Your pain is real?" she said, her voice gentle, but carrying clearly in the now silent market. "I feel it. My people feel pain too. Many Zephyrians lost loved ones in the conflict." She extended her hand, palm up, in a traditional Zephyrian gesture of peace. "I cannot bring back your brother, but I can honor his memory by working for peace." "Between our peoples," Frank seemed taken aback. He stared at her outstretched hand, then at the crowd watching them. Without another word, he turned and walked away. The market remained quiet for a moment, then gradually the normal sounds of commerce resumed. An older woman approached them, offering Lyra a small bunch of rare flowers. "That was well handled, dear," she said. "Not everyone feels like Frank does." On their walk home, Jack was unusually quiet. Finally, Lyra asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Jack shook his head. "No, you did something I couldn't." You saw past his anger to his pain. He paused. "Is that part of being empathic?" "Yes," Lyra said. "But you have this ability too in your own way. You simply haven't used it in a long time?" That night, Jack had the nightmare again. He was back on Proxima 4, surrounded by the bodies of his squad. The air smelled of smoke and blood. A wounded Zephyrian soldier crawled toward him, reaching out with a weapon. Jack raised his rifle. He woke with a gasp, his body covered in sweat. As always, his hand had automatically reached for the weapon he no longer kept beside his bed. But something was different this time. Lyra stood in the doorway of his room, her tendrils glowing softly in the darkness. "You were projecting," she explained. "Your nightmare was so strong I felt it from the other room." Jack sat up, embarrassed and defensive. "I don't want to talk about it." Lyra took a step into the room. "You don't need to talk, but perhaps I can help." She gestured to the edge of his bed. "May I?" After a moment, Jack nodded. Lyra sat beside him and gently took his hand. The same tingling sensation he had felt before spread up his arm, but stronger now. With it came a sense of calm, like cool water flowing over a burn. "How are you doing that?" he whispered. "Empathic resonance," Lyra explained. "I'm not taking away your memories, just helping balance the emotions attached to them." Jack found himself relaxing, the images from the nightmare fading. He looked at their joined hands, her blue skin against his tan, and realized how natural it had begun to feel. The next morning, A message arrived from Greg. The diplomatic crisis had been resolved, and he would visit in 3 days. Jake felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety at the news. We can finally clear up this whole situation, he told Lyra as they ate breakfast. She nodded, but her tendrils barely glowed. Yes, that would be best. Later that day, as Jack worked in his small vegetable garden, he heard the sound of vehicles approaching. He stood up, wiping soil from his hands, and saw 3 official colony security vehicles parking in front of his cabin. Lyra came out onto the porch, looking concerned. Officer Sam Reed, head of colony security, stepped out of the lead vehicle. Jack. Miller, he called. We need to speak with you and your guest. Jack walked over to stand beside Lyra. What's this about, Sam? We've received information that your Zephyrian may be here for purposes other than what she's claimed. Sam looked uncomfortable. Terran intelligence has sent agents to question her. 2 men in plain black uniforms emerged from the second vehicle. They didn't introduce themselves. Miss Lyra, one said. We need you to come with us for questioning, Jack stepped forward. On what grounds? Security concerns, the agent replied flatly. Several Zephyrians have recently taken up residence with humans who have military backgrounds. It raises questions. Jack felt a cold sensation in his stomach. She's done nothing wrong. Then she has nothing to worry about, the agent said. This is just a routine interview. Lyra placed a gentle hand on Jack's arm. It's all right, I will go with them. Jack covered her hand with his. That I'm coming too. The agent started to object, but Officer Reed intervened. Let him accompany her, as her human sponsor. It's within colonial regulation. At the security building, Jack and Lyra were separated. Jack paced the small waiting room for what felt like hours. When Lyra finally emerged, her blue skin looked pale, and her tendrils hung limp around her face. What did they ask you? Jack demanded, hurrying to her side. Many questions about Zephyrian diplomatic protocols. About why I was chosen for this exchange. Her voice was tired. They believe I might be gathering intelligence. Jack felt anger rising within him. That's ridiculous. As they left the building, Jack noticed a small crowd had gathered outside. Some held signs with anti-alien slogans. Frank Davis stood among them. This is getting out of hand, Jack muttered. He put his arm around Lyra's shoulders protectively, not caring who saw the gesture. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Jack made a decision. When Greg comes, I'm not going to ask him to undo this arrangement, he said quietly. Lyra turned to look at him, her silver eyes wide with surprise. But you've said many times that humans choose their own partners, Jack nodded. We do, and I'm choosing now. He reached out hesitantly and touched one of her luminous tendrils. It curled gently around his finger, sending a pleasant warmth through his hand. There's something happening between us, he continued. Something I don't fully understand yet, but I want to see where it leads. Lyra's entire body seemed to glow with a soft blue light. In my culture, we have a saying, true bonds form beyond reason, beyond stars, beyond time. Jack smiled. On Earth, we just call that falling in love. As they sat together under the alien sky, Jack realized that sometimes the most unexpected gifts turned out to be exactly what you never knew you needed. Greg's diplomatic shuttle landed in the clearing near Jack's cabin right on schedule. Jack and Lyra stood side by side on the porch, watching as Greg emerged with his usual confident stride. He waved broadly, but his smile faded slightly when he noticed Jack's arm around Lyra's waist. Well now, Greg said as he approached, this is an interesting development. Jack stepped forward to greet his friend with a brief hug. A lot has happened since you left. Greg looked between them, his eyebrows raised. Clearly. Last time I was here, you could barely look at each other. Now you seem ... comfortable. Lyra bowed her head slightly in the traditional Zephyrian greeting. Much has changed, Diplomat Dawson. Inside the cabin, they shared a meal that Lyra had prepared, a blend of Earth and Zephyrian cuisine that Jack had grown to enjoy. Greg watched with interest as Jack and Lyra moved around each other with the easy familiarity of people who had adapted to sharing space. So, Greg said finally, setting down his fork, I take it you're not asking me to undo this arrangement? Jack shook his head. No, but we do have questions. Greg's expression became serious. I thought you might, and I have news that might answer some of them. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. The truth is, there's more to this gift than I initially explained. Jack felt Lyra tense beside him. What do you mean? The Zephyrian Elder didn't just want to reward me for saving his life, Greg explained. He had a larger purpose. He looked directly at Lyra. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Lyra's tendrils pulsed with a deep blue light. She nodded. Slowly, I know some of it, yes. Jack looked between them, confused. Some of what? What's going on? Greg pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. It projected a hologram of a star system, the Zephyrian Home System. The Zephyrian scientists have discovered something alarming. Their sun is becoming unstable. Within the next decade, it will release a massive solar flare that will make much of their homeworld uninhabitable. Jack stared at the hologram, which now showed a simulation of the devastating flare. That's terrible, but what does it have to do with us? The Zephyrians are a proud people, Greg continued. They won't abandon their homeworld entirely. But they need to ensure their survival as a species. He gestured toward Lyra. They've been arranging unions between their people and compatible species throughout the galaxy. Jack turned to Lyra, a sense of betrayal rising within him. You knew this? That you were part of some preservation program? Lyra met his gaze steadily. I knew my people faced danger. I knew unions with humans were being encouraged, but I did not know all the details. She reached for his hand. What I feel for you is not part of any program, Jack. It is real. Jack pulled his hand away and stood up. So, all of this you coming here, staying with me, it was just to ensure your species survives? Greg intervened. Jack, it's not that simple, isn't it? Jack interrupted. Seems pretty clear to me. She's here on a mission, not because of any real connection. Lyra stood too, her silver eyes flashing. That is not fair. Yes, I came here knowing my people faced a crisis. But everything that has happened between us since then has been genuine. Her tendrils glowed intensely. You know this. You have felt it. Jack wanted to stay angry, but he could feel the truth of her words through their growing empathic bond. Still, he felt used. I need some air, he muttered, heading for the door. Outside, Jack paced along the edge of the woods, trying to sort through his conflicted feelings. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the clearing. He was so lost in thought that he almost didn't notice the approaching vehicles until their headlights cut through the growing darkness. 3 black rovers pulled up in front of his cabin. Jack recognized the unmarked vehicles of Terran intelligence. He hurried back toward the house. Inside, he found Greg and Lyra still sitting at the table, now in tense silence. We've got company, Jack announced. The same agents who questioned Lyra before. Greg stood quickly. This isn't good. I need to contact the embassy. Before he could reach for his communicator, there was a loud knock at the door. Jack opened it to find the 2 agents from before, along with a new man who seemed to be in charge. Jack Miller, the lead agent said. We need to speak with all of you immediately. Jack reluctantly let them in. The lead agent introduced himself as Daniel. Ward, we've uncovered troubling information, Ward announced without preamble. The Zephyrians have been systematically placing their people with humans who have military backgrounds or access to sensitive information. He looked pointedly at Lyra. This appears to be an intelligence operation disguised as cultural exchange. Greg stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full diplomatic stature. That's nonsense. I have full knowledge of the exchange program. Do you? Ward asked. Then perhaps you can explain why we've detected unusual energy readings from Zephyrian compounds, or why they've been gathering detailed information about Earth's defense systems. Jack looked at Lyra, who seemed genuinely confused. Is this true? He asked her. No, she said firmly. At least not as they're suggesting. My people are studying Earth's technology, yes, but not as enemies. Ward pulled out a tablet and displayed images of what appeared to be Zephyrian weapons. These were found at another human Zephyrian residence. You expect us to believe this is peaceful? Greg examined the images and frowned. These aren't weapons. They're atmospheric stabilizers. Part of the technology the Zephyrians use to protect. Against solar radiation, Ward looked skeptical. Convenient explanation, Diplomat Dawson. The tension in the room was broken by the sound of breaking glass. Everyone turned to see a flaming object crash through the window. Smoke quickly filled the room. Get down, Jack shouted, pulling Lyra to the floor. Outside, angry voices could be heard. Jack crawled to the window and peered out. A group of colonists, led by Frank Davis, surrounded the cabin. Some held makeshift weapons. Come out and face us, alien. Lovers, Frank shouted. We know what's going on. The Zephyrians are planning another invasion. Greg joined Jack at the window. This is bad, very bad. Ward and his agents drew their weapons. We need to get out of here, Ward said. This situation is volatile. Jack turned to Lyra, who was crouched near the table, her tendrils almost white with fear. He made a quick decision and moved to her side. I believe you, he said quietly. Whatever's happening, I know you're not part of a plot against humans. Lyra's eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Jack. Greg was trying to reason with Agent Ward. If you go out there with weapons drawn, this will escalate. Let me handle it diplomatically. Ward hesitated, then nodded. You have 5 minutes to calm them down. Then we do this my way. Greg stepped outside, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. Citizens of New Montana, I am Diplomat Greg Dawson. Please disperse peacefully. Frank's voice rose above the crowd. We know the truth. The aliens are using our people. They're planning something. As Greg tried to reason with the mob, Jack turned to Lyra. Is there anything else I should know? Anything at all about why you're really here? Lyra took his hands. In hers. As she did, their empathic connection flared stronger than ever before. Jack gasped as images flooded his mind, the Zephyrian homeworld in crisis, scientists working desperately to save their people, and something else, something beyond their star system, a looming threat that made the solar flare seem minor by comparison. There is more, Lyra whispered. Much more. But it isn't what they think. We need humans, Jack, not as enemies, but as allies. Outside, the shouting grew louder. Time was running out. The situation outside the cabin was growing more dangerous by the minute. Greg's attempts to calm the crowd weren't working. Agent Ward was preparing his team to intervene, which would likely make things worse. Jack looked at Lyra, her silver eyes wide with concern. You said we need humans as allies? Against what? There is no time to explain fully, Lyra said. But I can show you. She placed her hands on either side of Jack's face, her touch gentle but firm. Open your mind to me completely. It is the only way? Jack hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. He closed his eyes and focused on the tingling sensation that had become familiar between them. This time, instead of a gentle flow of empathy, he felt a flood of images and emotions pour into his consciousness. He saw a vast darkness beyond the edge of known space. Something moving within that darkness, something ancient and hungry. He felt the collective fear of the Zephyrian people as their scientists detected this entity approaching their corner of the galaxy. He understood now the solar flare threatening. Their homeworld was just the beginning. The greater danger was this cosmic predator that had already consumed several distant civilizations. Jack gasped as Lyra broke the connection. His head throbbed with the weight of the knowledge she had shared. Now you understand, she whispered. My people didn't send me here just to survive the solar flare. We need a strong alliance with humans to face what's coming. Jack nodded slowly. And the empathic bond between us, it's more important than I realized. Yes, Lyra confirmed. Zephyrians and humans are uniquely compatible. When bonded, we can create a psychic network powerful enough to detect and potentially repel the entity. But the bond must be genuine, built on trust and choice. That's why I never forced it. The sound of breaking glass from another window interrupted. Agent Ward drew his weapon. Time's up. We're getting out of here now. Jack stood up straight, a sudden clarity filling him. No, we're going to face this together. He turned to Ward. Your agents need to stand down. There's something all of you need to see. Before Ward could object, Jack walked to the door and stepped outside. Greg shot him a worried look but moved aside. Jack faced the angry crowd, Lyra by his side. My name is Jack Miller, he called out. Many of you know me. I fought in the Proxima Centauri conflict just like some of you. I lost friends just like you did, Frank Davis pushed to the front of the crowd. Then why are you harboring one of them? They're planning something. You're right, Jack said, surprising everyone. The Zephyrians are planning something, but not what you think. He reached for Lyra's hand. Show them. Show all of them what you showed me. Lyra looked uncertain. A mass connection has never been attempted with humans before. If what you showed me is real, then they need to know, Jack insisted. All of them. Lyra nodded. She closed her eyes and her tendrils began to glow with an intensity Jack had never seen before. The light spread outward in waves, washing over the crowd, the agents, Greg, and Jack himself. For a moment, everything was silent. Then as one, the crowd gasped. Jack knew they were seeing what he had seen, the approaching cosmic threat, the desperate need for alliance, the potential of human and Zephyrian minds working together. When the vision faded, the crowd stood stunned. Frank Davis was the first to speak, his voice shaky. What was that thing? Agent Ward lowered his weapon, his face pale. I felt it. It was real. Greg stepped forward. This is what the Zephyrian Council has been trying to prepare for. The solar flare threatening their world is just the beginning. They've been seeking allies because they know they can't face this alone. Jack squeezed Lyra's hand. The Zephyrians aren't here to invade us. They're here because they believe that, together, our species might survive what's coming. The crowd began to disperse, people talking in hushed, frightened voices about what they had experienced. Agent Ward approached Jack and Lyra. I need to report this to my superiors immediately, he said. If what we saw is real, it is, Lyra assured him. And there is more we can share through proper diplomatic channels. Greg nodded. I'll arrange an emergency session with the Terran High Council and the Zephyrian elders. As the agents left, and the last of the crowd disappeared, Jack, Lyra, and Greg returned to the cabin. They sat in silence for a while, processing the night's events. So, Jack finally said to Greg, when you said you had a surprise that would change everything, you weren't exaggerating. Greg laughed weakly. Honestly, I didn't know the half of it myself. I knew about the solar flare, but the rest, He shook his head. The elder who gave Lyra as a gift only told me that human Zephyrian bonds would be important for the future of both our species. I had no idea how important. Jack turned to Lyra. Why me? There must have been other humans who would have been easier to approach than a reclusive war veteran. Lyra's tendrils glowed softly as she looked at him. The Zephyrian scientists who studied compatibility patterns identified you as one of the strongest potential matches for empathic bonding. Your military experience, combined with your sensitivity, which you try so hard to hide, makes you uniquely suited to bridge our worlds, and the other Zephyrians who were placed with humans. Jack asked. Similar situations, Greg explained. But from what I understand, few have formed a connection as strong as yours. 3 days later, Jack and Lyra stood on a platform in the central plaza of New Montana Colony. Before them was a gathering of both humans and Zephyrians, the largest group of the aliens ever seen on Earth. Governor Wright introduced them to the crowd. Jack Miller and Lyra will lead our joint preparation efforts, she announced. Their unique bond has already proven valuable in helping us understand the challenges we face. Jack, who had always avoided public attention, felt strangely calm as he addressed the crowd. A month ago, I was alone in my cabin, hiding from the world. Then an old friend brought me an unexpected gift. He smiled at Lyra. What seemed at first like an awkward arrangement has become the most important connection of my life. Lyra stepped forward. The tradition of gifting a spouse is ancient among my people, but the true gift was not me to Jack or Jack to me. The gift is what we create together, a bridge between our worlds, a new kind of understanding that may help us face the darkness ahead. That night, As they stood on the porch of their cabin looking up at the stars, Jack put his arm around Lyra. Her tendrils glowed with contentment as she leaned against him. "Do you think we can really do this?" Jack asked quietly. "Save both our worlds?" Lyra turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "I don't know, but I do know that what we've started here is just the beginning. The bond between us grows stronger each day." Jack smiled and gently touched one of her luminous tendrils. "Not bad for an unexpected gift," Lyra laughed, the sound like distant chimes. "Among my people there is a saying, the greatest gifts are not those we ask for, but those we never knew we needed." As they sealed their words with a kiss that bridged two worlds, Jack Miller, once the loneliest man in the colony, finally felt complete. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together,